All right, so today's lesson is all about startup costs. We want to try to answer the question, what costs can we anticipate when starting a business? Now, the business that we've been working with for the last few classes, there haven't been a lot of startup costs because a lot of the things that we're trying to sell uh, did not cost us any money, at least in the short term. They were paid for a long time ago, or maybe we didn't even pay for them. So that's a good start because we get a lot of practice in product description, pricing, and all the stuff that we've talked about. But at some point, if we have an idea for a business, we are going to have to pay something, whether it's, well, we'll get to some examples here, but we want to again answer the question, what cost can we anticipate when starting a business? Right. So let's think about this. Why would we cost estimate? Uh, well, the one of the key tenets to business is that you have to spend money in order to make money. For the most part, again, our previous activity with our product portfolio was probably the exception to that. But you could even say that, well, I had to put time into that activity, and time is certainly money. You'll need to ask for money to create and test your idea. If you are building a prototype or if you are launching a website and you don't have that money, you might need to ask somebody for it. Now, maybe your parents will give you the money because they're your parents and they want to see you succeed. But if you ever got to the point where you were going beyond asking family and friends for money, uh, you would have to professionally put together a pitch and communicate very clearly how much money you need and what exactly that money is for. Now, they will be minimal, but you will have costs. Every legitimate business that gets started are going to have some cost. And in addition to the time that the entrepreneur puts in. So there's three basic costs that you will have when we look at not just starting a business, but ultimately running a business. And so we have startup costs, what we're going to call selling and general administrative costs, and then COGS or cost of goods sold. Now we'll also have some other terms for these as well that we'll share. Startup costs. These are one-time costs needed to start your business. So you could think, is there a cost that you will just pay one time and won't pay it again, but then your business is considered up and running? The selling and general administrative costs are the cost to sell, market, and run your business operations. So think of the things that you are going to have to pay to keep your quote unquote doors open. And then COGS are costs to make your product or service. So we talked about these. These are the costs associated with selling your product or providing your service. All right, so let's look at a little further definition of these and some examples. So we define a startup cost by a one-time non-recurring or non-repeating expense to get your business started. So these could include if you wanted to file paperwork with the state of Illinois in order to become an official business. Maybe you bought an equipment or bought a piece of equipment or some property. Maybe there's development costs, maybe the cost to make your prototype. Maybe there's some costs before you launch if you were going to go to a trade show. Another startup cost might be if you wanted to buy a domain. If you came up with a name for www.mybusiness.com, you would have to pay for that one time. But we're not focusing on these just yet. Selling and general administrative, these are the ongoing fees to run your business. So you could think of the administrative fees. If you had a storefront and you were paying rent, or if you, in that store, you had a wireless connection or internet connection, you would have to pay those on a monthly basis. Maybe you are putting out promotional materials every month, and then you are also paying salaries for your employees. The thing about these selling and general administrative costs is these get paid by the business no matter what. So if I'm selling something, if I sell 1,000,000 of them, or if I sell one of them, I'm still going to have to pay my rent. I'm still going to have to pay the technology. I'm still going to have to pay to promote my business. Okay. And we're not necessarily focused on these either. Now, what we are going to focus on a lot for the next two lessons is what we call the COGS or the cost of goods, the cost to make the product or service. And typically that involves both materials and labor. So if I am making a product, let's say, for example, I'm selling coffee, and the cost of goods are going to be how much does it cost me to get that cup of coffee into my customer's hands, including the coffee itself, the cup, the sleeve, the lid, any type of stopper in it, or anything at all. If I'm providing a service, there's obviously materials. If I'm mowing somebody's lawn, how much gas do I use? But then also, how much time do I put into the actual or actually performing the service? So if it takes me 1/2 hour to mow somebody's lawn, and I value my time or you value your time at $25 an hour, you can do the math and figure out this is how much I feel my time is worth, plus however much gas or however much equipment you are using. So those are the kind of costs that we're going to estimate. Now we have to get into how do we estimate these costs? And what we can't do is we can't just arbitrarily say, oh, I think it's going to cost $100. Especially if we get to the point where we are asking people to provide us with funds to pursue our business. We really need to be able to speak clearly and specifically about how you arrived at that specific number. So it's an approximation of the probable cost of a product, program, or project computed on the basis of available information. Now that's really key because there is a lot of available information out there. It's called the internet. The other key word there is approximation. It is not an exact science. In fact, as we say, it is both an art and a science. So there is some creative side, there is a creative side to it, but then there also is a scientific side where we need to actually look at some hard and fast numbers. All right, so let's look at some techniques. And what you guys will be doing in your groups with your ideas is you will be using some of these to actually estimate how much do you think it would cost to start your business. Okay? The first one is expert judgment. I would certainly want to discuss whatever venture I'm pursuing. I would want to discuss it with somebody who is experienced and knowledgeable in the industry or in the category. I'll go back to my coffee shop example because I like coffee. If I were planning on opening up a coffee shop, I would certainly want to speak to somebody who has experience in the food and beverage industry. Maybe talk to some people who know what it's like doing business in Glenview. This is something that you would probably do along with many of these other techniques. The second one is a like item. So what I would want to do is I would want to look at how much does a similar item for me or a similar item to the one that I'm creating, how much does that cost? And then use that as a comparison. So you could use this for a product or a service. For example, if I was going to start offering lawn care services, I would go and I would see how much other places are charging for their services. Or if I was, if I was going to start a t-shirt business, I would go and I would see, well, how much does the similar t-shirt cost? And I could kind of use that as a comparison. A bottoms up strategy is when we estimate the individual pieces and then add them up. And there's a segment from a profit episode that I will show you guys probably next class, where they actually estimate how much each individual piece of the product costs and then price it based on that. The food industry uses this a lot. So, for example, a restaurant might, what they will do is they will look at, well, how much does a burger cost us? That includes the bun, the burger, the lettuce, the tomato, the cheese, any toppings, the packaging, anything that goes into, again, getting the product into the customer's hands. And when all of those pieces are then added up, they will say, okay, this cost us $2.40. Sometimes on Shark Tank, you see, well, what are your costs or how much does it cost you? They're basically saying this burger cost us $2.40, and then we're going to sell it to our customers for $7.99 or $8.99. Okay, and then the last one is what we call vendor bid, where you're going to contact suppliers or vendors and get cost estimates. Let's go back to the t-shirt example. There are so many companies out there that will print, ship, and provide you with t-shirts, custom t-shirts. So what you would want to do is look at several different vendors, contact them, just reach out to them and figure out, are they running any specials or promotions, or are there any resources that they can provide to you? But we don't just want to go to the first one that we find and say, oh, okay, I'm going to get my t-shirts from this person. We want to try and contact as many of these suppliers or vendors as we can. Okay. Now, What you guys are going to do in your groups is you guys have already started estimating some of the costs associated with your ideas. Remember, these are just ideas. You don't have a business yet. And so the first part is you're going to go back and you are going to kind of categorize the costs that you guys came up with into those three categories: startup cost, selling and general administrative, and then cost of goods sold. Okay. The second part is in your groups, you guys are going to actually use some of these techniques and find out how much do you think it would actually cost to start that business. So, for example, I know there is a t-shirt company out there in one of those groups. You might want to go and shop around and see how much would it cost to get 100 t-shirts printed. Um, Maybe you could look and see if there's some information on there about how much does it cost to build a prototype, or how much does it cost to provide a specific service, right? I'm going to give you guys some time in your groups to do this, and then we're going to come back together and we'll discuss exactly how you guys used each one of these strategies.